Hi everyone, welcome to the Mummy Movie Podcast, where we are looking at, a film that's got absolutely nothing to do with mummies whatsoever. We are looking at Godzilla versus Megalon from 1973. Today, I am joined by guest Jake Fleming.
Hello again.
You last joined me, I believe it was on Manos, the Hands of Fate.
Yeah. So I've been treated this time to something much more within my sphere of comfort, which is Godzilla, a film I've never seen one of before. So
yeah, a film of high art.
Absolutely, yeah. I have to admit, it was extremely moving.
So I've got a few little facts about this film.
Okay.
First things first, it's always nice to cover these because, as you've probably been aware, I normally bring you on the films that aren't that great.
Yeah,
They're kind of fall into the so bad they're good kind of realm, I suppose.
Favorite.
Always nice to know that this film was made. It wasn't made to be deliberately bad, but it was made cheaply and with limited resources, as I'm sure you're shocked by.
Not really. That's clear in lots of aspects of this movie, which I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about. But yeah, certainly in the costume design and a lot of the repetitive footage, I think we can mention at this point as well. That's very clear that they did this on quite the budget.
Another fun little fact. So this film is the least successful Godzilla film in Japan. However, in the US, it was a surprising smash hit.
Okay. Oh, that's quite interesting. And I'm guessing that they like it. Did the American audiences like it for being campy and ridiculous?
That's actually one of the things, right? So the film company that made this, I believe it's like Kaiju Films or something along those lines.
Yeah.
They were not trying to make campy and sort of comedic films. This is the film that pretty much gave them that image.
Yeah, well, I mean, they can't really be too surprised by that. It's a very campy movie. And again, I don't want to skip ahead, but the Godzilla puppet looks like a Jim Henson creation. And there's fight scenes that go on for about 40 minutes.
Yes, all right. So in America, so this film originally came out in 1973 in Japan. It came out in 1976 in the US, and it first came out in theatres, in fairness. At the showings in cinemas, some of the audience were given comics and just sort of like a cut-down version of the actual film. However, a lot of the characters had the wrong names.
That's not even that hard to get right, except for the humans in it, because we had to look up their names afterwards, and I don't think they mention each other's names much.
Yeah. So was it like Gigan or something? Is it Gigan?
Oh, is that the bird thing?
Yeah, I might be getting it. It might be
Gigan or Gigan, yeah, something like that, yeah.
For some reason, it was called Borodan in the comic.
Okay, right.
But my favourite one is Jet Jaguar, the robot.
Yes.
In the comic, he was just called Robot Man.
More memorable, I suppose.
Yeah. The final thing that's kind of fun about this is the next year in 1977 is when it really got its sort of big break. Because there was a big advertising campaign and it was shown on primetime TV. I think it was at 9 p.m. I think it was on NBC.
Okay. Yeah.
But they showed it in basically a cut-down form of like 40 minutes. And with like, I can't remember who the man is, but like this sort of famous presenter doing skits dressed as Godzilla during the
Oh, right. Okay. So they were kind of just taking the mick out of it. That's a little bit sad, actually. I feel a bit disappointed in the way that they've treated it, because it is a ridiculous movie, but I don't think it deserves that.
It's a glorious film.
It really is. Again, I don't want to give too much away, but we had a really good time watching this movie. Yeah. It was really fun. But yeah, any other facts, or are we moving swiftly on?
Believe it or not, there's actually not that many facts about it. That's as far as we go.
Okay.
So, it is time for my dramatic intro. Right. You are an inventor who has built an advanced robot. Little do you realise, it will soon save humanity, as after a great earthquake caused by nuclear tests, a series of events begin to unravel. A great monster rises from the depths, and a robot is needed to find our hero, Godzilla. Soon, you shall witness the battle between Godzilla versus Megalon.
Fabulous. And When you were writing that, I know we were discussing we wanted to keep some of the twists, I suppose, within the first 20 minutes of the movie out, because we want to run through those as they came up.
Yes, well, as I'm sure you're aware, there's one part where, I don't know about you, I was laughing so hard that the sides of my head began to hurt.
Yeah, you did say that, yeah.
And I was legitimately crying.
I mean, I was enjoying. I was laughing a lot at that point because a lot of insane stuff just came out of nowhere. There was like 4 or 5 handbrake turns around corners in this movie in a row, which was great.
But, well, the first scene we have is...
Yes.
Well, we get the thing that everyone wants to see when a film starts, which is a child actor, an annoying child actor. And he's kind of like, well, actually, that's not the beginning, is it? Because
No. We skipped ahead slightly because there is a little bit of context thrown in around nuclear tests. It shows a nuclear test hitting an island.
Yeah.
Godzilla's there. He appears very briefly to sort of wave around and go, I'm being nuked.
Yes.
Which he doesn't appreciate, but that's the last we're seeing of him for a long time.
It really is. I quite like they had all the other dinosaurs on there as well.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe writhing.
Concerned at the nuclear bomb going off, as he would be.
But then we skip over to a scene where we've got a child, and he's basically in the water on this weird kind of paddle boat thing, I guess. It's got
a duck-shaped thing.
Yeah. And you've got 2 sort of men who are sort of watching him from the shore.
Yeah. I don't know if these are established characters, because I was thinking, I don't know how these 3 are related. What I found out afterwards is that one of them is the kid's older brother, and the other one is that guy's friend. But there wasn't really any dialogue to establish their relationships. I don't mind that so much. No. I'm happy to just have 3 characters established, but I wasn't sure if this was like a 2 dads and a kid relationship.
It kind of almost looked very progressive.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, so he's paddling along, and then suddenly there's this rumbling.
Yeah.
We see rocks falling down the beach.
Yeah. And this goes on for a while.
Yeah.
The kid is then sort of asked to paddle as hard as possible to try and get out of the water during an earthquake, and quickly the 2 men realise that that's futile.
Yes.
So they say they're going to send a rocket out, which we were both a bit confused by, but in the end they did kind of fire some sort of rope over to the kid to pull him away, but the boat was consumed by the earthquake, which had split such a big hole in the earth that the water fell in it.
And I love the fact that, no different, nothing seemed to happen on the beach at all, though. That was all fine.
Yes.
But the whole river had disappeared in the hole in the ground.
All went in the hole. All the water was in the hole. It was dry by the end of it.
But essentially what they shot the rocket out was just like on a string.
Yes.
Round the boat and pulled him to shore. So everyone was fine.
Yeah, props to the kid for riding an earthquake so significant it destroyed a river. But he was able to paddle gently away from danger, I suppose.
And then we get our first weird transition, because we go to a weirdly kind of jolly scene where they're just driving back in the car.
This is why I was wondering if there were 2 dads, because they're kind of it looks like a family outing, doesn't it? They're driving in their car, the kid's in the back. But I want to mention something as well about that first scene, in the sense that the pacing of that scene is nothing like the pacing of the next 7 or 8 scenes. That sort of earthquake takes 7 or 8 minutes, I would say. It's quite a long scene of just rumbling, them tumbling about a bit. And then what we're about to see next happens so quickly. And this is why we were in some fit of hysterics, because we were just thrown around corners after this.
Well, we were at a point now, so they've arrived home.
Yes.
And I believe we actually had to rewind because we looked away for literally 2 seconds.
Yes, we did. We looked away for 2 seconds, and as they're arriving into this house, and I want to talk about the house in a second, but within about 20 seconds, he has been beaten up by some home invaders, and he has a red circle in his hand, and also there's a robot.
Yes.
Which we come to know as Jet Jaguar. So there's a lot going on. But the house I want to mention as well, because as you said when we were watching it, it looks like it's in quite a rundown area.
Yeah.
But there's kind of boxes and modern art looking things and sort of futuristic design things going on. It's very odd and quirky, but I kind of like it. It was interesting.
Cool house. Yeah, I love the weird box thing they have hanging in the middle.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but I kind of like when they have a TV monitor showing people coming in and out.
Yeah.
They've got, like sliding doors.
Yeah.
Got a robot.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a cool aesthetic. I really liked it. And actually, I like their car as well. Everything in this movie, and I will give credit where it's due, I like the look of this movie. It looks pretty cool. Even in the shambolic bits, it looks pretty cool.
It's very charming.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically they've just had these people attack them. They've knocked out. And then one of them runs off to basically, the racing driver runs off to chase the bad guys.
Yes, he's established as a racing driver in a line of dialogue, which is why he's good at chases. So he's involved in a few.
Which, again, I didn't realise until I looked up his character online. Because...
Yeah, there is a bit where the kid goes, "You're a racing driver," and this is, I guess, establishing that fact, but that's about it. And there's a chase scene, isn't there? But it's extremely difficult to follow exactly what's happening in this chase scene because they seem to be allergic to filming two cars in the same shot.
Also, just the cuts. Well, there's a bit where he arrives at the end of the road. There's a full 3-point turn. Yeah. And then they just show another scene where he kind of does another one. And
yeah. There's a lot of editing, I think, where they've kind of either mixed up the shots or they've emphasized something far too much, and maybe we don't have the trained eye to realize what's happening, but I really didn't follow the chase at all, except till the end when the villains who are driving away throw a small amount of fire on the floor, which is enough to put our protagonist off from chasing them any further.
Yeah, you can't possibly drive through that.
No, that would, you'd catch fire. You can't touch fire.
You'd get vaguely warm.
It's not allowed. So that was an interesting scene. So a lot's happening at the moment, isn't there? We've gone from an earthquake to a home invasion and now a chase scene.
Yeah.
But also, while this is going on, we've got, I don't know the names of the characters, but the kid and his brother, the inventor. Let's call them the inventor and the kid. Yeah. Because the point of this character is he invented Jet Jaguar. Sorry, I've been calling him Joe Jaguar. Trying to remind myself what it is, but yeah.
I love the bit in the house when they go back, they're cleaning up.
Yeah.
They find a small pile of sand, red sand.
Yes.
And that's all they're fixated on.
Well, it's really pointless as well. So the ultimate point of that sand is for them to reveal that sand has come from a specific place in Easter Island. But they get told that by the villains anyway. So it's not like they needed to work that out.
I love that point when they say, "Oh yes, it's come from Easter Island. That place is 3 million years old." Like the statues there. I will admit, I didn't know, but I knew they weren't that old. I think I said, didn't I? Do you know how old they actually are?
You did mention this. Yeah, go ahead.
It's about between sort of 1,400 to 1,600 AD. So,
well, it's a little off. They said 3 million. It was about 500. It's easy to make mistakes. But I mean, it's funny because as soon as they said these statues are 3 million years old, we both turned to each other and were like, that doesn't sound right. Neither of us are experts in this field, but that's definitely not right.
But yeah, so they found the sand, which are well, this is really red sand, which apparently is something.
Yeah.
And what I love it, because you said earlier he had that thing in his hand.
Yeah.
The red thing. They're like, oh, so this is red and that's red.
Yeah, yeah. They just decide that's the same colour. They don't do any kind of justification beyond, well, this is the same as the sand, therefore these are related somehow.
What I love is another scene where they're smashing the thing up and then they're just holding 2 test tubes.
Somehow that's science.
Yeah. Science needs test tubes. We all know this.
Yeah. They do the science bit and then immediately cuts into him engineering Jet Jaguar. Oh, and I want to mention Jet Jaguar because I'm, again, like a lot of the aesthetic of this movie, and Jet Jaguar is a cool looking thing. He does look a bit like Mac Tonight. I showed you a picture of Mac Tonight, that McDonald's mascot from the 80s. But I don't know, it's a cool design. It stands out. I can imagine as a kid wanting a Jet Jaguar action figure. Yeah,
well, like I said, I think it's one of the many things that looks like it belongs in Power Rangers.
Yeah, there is a Power Rangers vibe to this movie in general, I think. And I imagine Power Rangers probably borrowed their sort of style from Godzilla rather than the other way around. But
essentially, they've just sort of finished making this robot.
Yes.
They find out that this sand comes from Easter Island.
Yeah.
And Then we have a scene where the kid's basically just making a very small bike.
Yes. Because the thing that you want to do after the trauma of a home invasion where, your family members have been beaten up is allow the child then to just jot off into a kind of cycling.
Yeah, he literally just gets on the bike and they're like, all right, bye.
Yeah, he just goes off on his own. He's just off to ride around. He didn't seem particularly traumatized, is what I'm saying, I suppose.
Bear in mind, would you say this kid's, 7, 8?
Yeah, it's not it's not an old kid. He's definitely too young to be out and about when there's violent home invaders around.
Yes, yeah. This
is not Home Alone. Although there are Home Alone aspects to it at times.
Okay, so the kid's he's ridden off into, the street.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, what do you reckon happens? Oh no.
Well, the same kidnappers, or I should say kidnappers, the home invaders that we saw earlier, literally about 3 minutes ago, kidnapped the child.
What I love, there's a particular cut here. That's great, because they open the door. It's clearly supposed to be that the child, crashes into the door. But then there's a cut and he just stood up. And
it's so awkwardly done. I mean, fair enough, they didn't want to harm the child actor. They didn't want to put him into any actual danger. But it does look pathetic because he taps it at about a mile an hour.
There's so many little cuts here, though, that just don't work. It's like in that car chase earlier. There's a bit where literally he drives forward and parks and then drives backwards. But when he parks, you see the car, shift sideways because they've done a cut there.
Yeah. It's overcooked everything. And I think that it has an issue less so in the fight scenes because they're played a little bit more kind of long form, but certainly in some of the action scenes outside of that, a lot of it is very quick cuts, shaky cam at times. It's really playing on those techniques, but it does make it a bit jarring and hard to follow. And so at that point, the kid then arrives back at the house, but he's also being pointed at with guns by the home invaders. They're using him to get in. And I do want to add, one of the home invaders is a Japanese version of Snape. He really looks like Severus Snape.
It does. I love this scene because they point the gun at the child at the door and he just looks so sad.
He looks like he's been told off.
Yeah.
But the guns, so he shoots the gun. At this point, I was like, oh, God, he's actually shooting these people, but they're full of powder.
Yeah.
Apparently that's a thing. So the powder knocks them out. And then this is where we get to the kind of reveal that we weren't ready for at the moment.
I'm not even kidding. This may be my favourite scene I've seen since doing this podcast. It was just incredible. Okay, right. The bad guys run to this control panel. And they say, calling Seatopia. And then we go to Easter Island, and I'm not even kidding. There's just these people in togas.
Yes, yeah.
We find out they've been living there for 3 million years.
Yep.
There's some weird women doing dances.
Which I'll point out, the only women in the film.
Yeah, with strange sperm-like hats on, to be honest.
Yes, yeah, that's true, yeah.
And then we just find out, they've basically been awoken because of, the nuclear bombs. They've been at peace for 3 million years, and now they want to punish humanity.
Yes.
And how do they do so?
With Megalon.
Their god.
Yeah,
Megalon.
their god Megalon has come out.
I love their little headband where they got the little Megalon sign. He just looks like got a little moth on there.
Yeah, he does, yeah. Well, he mentions, doesn't he? He says a third of their city has been destroyed, or something like that. A third of their people. Which is terrible. There doesn't appear to be any signs of damage in the location that we're looking at, but I don't know how big Seatopia is. Maybe it's massive. Who knows?
But it's just so left field. It's like it's gone from this big sci-fi thing with Godzilla to fantasy, high fantasy type.
Well, I think it's worth re-emphasizing. We went into this with no knowledge of what was going to happen. And we were thinking, well, it's going to be a Godzilla movie. There'll be another monster. And some story wrapped around that. I did not, at no point was I anticipating an ancient Seatopian people who were going to evoke the spirit of a god.
The whole reason I wanted to see this film was because there's a particular bit where you see Godzilla do the most glorious dropkick to...
It was good.
Yeah, and I assumed the fight would be between the robot and Godzilla. That would be it.
Yeah.
How wrong I was and how... much I'm happy about that.
I wonder if it's because Megalon sounds like Megatron, that I presumed that Megalon was going to be the robot.
Yeah.
So when this sort of beetle emerged, again, we both burst into laughter because we were like, where did this come from? I wasn't expecting this. But I forgot it is in that scene. I mean, he's the one getting kicked in that fight scene, but I guess I'd erased that from my memory, and I was like, Godzilla's going to fight this robot.
Yeah.
That's going to be taken over by the evil people. And then, we end up in this ancient society, which, I'll give it credit. At that point, I was just saying, I am hooked. I really don't know where this is going, and I really want to know where it's going.
Honestly, I have not laughed that hard, and I can't remember how long. We legitimately had to, at the end of the film, go back and rewatch it. So and I was worried I was just going to start off again, to be honest.
I think it's just how it's introduced as well, because it's introduced over a phone call, isn't it?
Yeah.
Snape makes a call to Seatopia. How he has a direct line, I guess they have phones. So they must have been thrown one at some point.
It's the thing I love about these old 70s films. This is an extreme example of it, but there are other ones.
Yeah.
Like the other day, I was watching a film with Peter Cushing where it was just about a woman who turns into a moth. And
oh, yeah, you were mentioning that, yeah.
But, I love the fact they always play it so straight.
Yes, yeah.
This ridiculous idea.
Yeah, they are not winking to the camera at all, are they? They're saying this is the next part of the story. The other thing to mention, I suppose, here is the reason, and we had to go back to check that they established this, the reason why those bad guys want the robot in the first place is because they're going to use Jet Jaguar to guide Megalon.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know why Megalon can't make his own way to wherever this is taking place.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, he needs the robot.
Well, it's kind of a bit weird because they say they want it to get revenge, but they're very sort of vague on what that actually means.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess it's smash things.
Well, yeah, and to be honest, I mean, again, not jumping too far ahead, but it does smash a lot of things. We see long scenes of military men and buildings being blown up.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was all for nothing if you're looking at it from that regard. But, I mean, they didn't seem that annoyed. Again, I'm skipping far too far ahead. They didn't seem that annoyed when he came back, having been defeated.
No, but whilst this is going on, we find out that sort of the bad guys, they've also kidnapped the inventor and the child.
Yeah.
And they put them in a big container.
Yeah.
And they've just got a driver to somehow drive them, but the drivers don't know they're in the container.
Yeah, they've at one point, one of them says he's paying us 100,000 yen. So he must have I don't know if he found two people on the street and he's like, I'll pay you 100,000 yen. He had a shipping container ready. I don't know, but either way, they're sort of, and it goes back to that pacing of slowing down, and they spend a long time sliding around in that container.
Yeah.
You just get a lot of occasional scenes of them going, and bumping into the side.
Yes, basically.
Which is fine. Yeah.
But then we have our bad guys, and they essentially they find a way of using the robots to their advantage.
Yeah.
And the robot walks outside. It does a weird kind of hand movement. It does some very Power Ranger-esque hand movements throughout this.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with the fact that it's obviously meant to be a robot, but there's obviously also a person inside it, and they move very humanly, but also a cartoonish human, and everything about that makes it look a bit Power Rangers.
Yes, yeah. So you've got the robot that's now started to fly, and I'm guessing it's flying towards Megalon.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you've still got our sort of our inventor and child in the back of this sort of container, and they're being taken to the edge of a dam or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like they're taking. This bit is not very clear. I think they're taking the inventor to the site where they're going to have Megalon.
Mm.
But I don't know why. I'm not really sure why. At first I thought they were going to kill him, but it doesn't seem like they were going to kill him. And then after that, Snape explains the plan to the racing driver who's tied up.
Oh my goodness.
And sort of says, this is what we're doing, Seatopia, blah, blah, blah. Then there's a fight where he escapes and decides to go and try and chase after where this container's being taken. And Snape phones up the other guy and says, he's escaped and he knows the plan. like he beats it out of him.
What I love about it, though, so these random people have run into the house.
Yeah.
They kidnapped the child and the other guy. They've tied this one up, and he's gone. This person he doesn't know. He's just gone. So there's been this earthquake, and it's awoken an ancient civilization from Seatopia who have brought around Megalon, who's going to come and fight us all. And then the guy who's tied up just goes, so the fables are true.
Again, there's an off-screen acknowledgement that these are the fables, and he's close to believing it, I guess. It just takes one villain to confirm that theory, and he's like, so it's true.
I mean, like, I'm going to say, if this had happened to me, my thought would be, these people are insane.
Yeah.
Not they're telling me the absolute truth.
You wouldn't read it as gospel at that point, but no, he's willing to. But to be fair, it's also established that Godzilla exists in this universe.
I mean, I suppose fans.
So that it's not that weird to believe that there's also an ancient beetle god in Easter Island.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess that's
if you look
true.
at it that way. It sounded ridiculous coming out of my mouth, but
it's wonderful. Yeah, so basically, our sort of racing driver, he then manages to escape after being told about the plan, and he starts getting chased by another bad guy. Two, one in a car and one on a motorbike.
Yeah,
and we get this amazing chasing where again, they like showing one car at a time or one car and one motorbike until they start going down a stair set.
Yeah, for some reason, so there's a bit in this chase where the cars start driving downstairs and down very steep hills. And they show that bit in full. Like, they don't even cut any kind of element of that out. They show pretty much everything that happens there. And I'm starting to think, did they film that bit first? Did they break the cars? And then they were like, we can't use these anymore, so we're just going to have to drive around carefully on the road.
Maybe. Although I will say, fairness to the stuntmen here,
yeah,
they've done. I wouldn't be able to drive like this.
No, it's looking quite impressive. Like, that's what I mean. Those bits look like a good chase scene, and I would watch more of that. But they only have that level of chase scene in those bits where they're driving down hills.
Yeah, and then it goes back to cut.
And you just see one vehicle at a time.
But I love the bit when the motorbike, it basically turns around and goes, I guess, on a shortcut. I don't know how they're driving in a straight line, but he ends up in front and just kind of crashes into the front of his car.
What was his plan? Was he expecting the car to explode under the power of his bike? I'm not really sure.
I'm going to say, in most situations, a car's always going to beat a bike in that kind of way.
It's exactly the situation I would avoid if I was on the bike, I think.
Yeah, but then we have the bad car sort of. Well, we have the main car crash through a building.
Yes.
The other car sort of gently hit the building and stop.
Yes.
And then the motorbike skids into this tube thing.
Yeah. He gets off it and pulls a rope, and then he's covered in glue.
Yeah, I don't even get why he pulls the rope.
No.
And then he again, going back to anything used to about Home Alone.
Yeah.
He just kind of does well.
It is like a Home Alone prank where he's like, oh, I've been covered in paint. It's very odd. It's slightly jarring in the context of the film. And that ends the chase scene.
Yeah.
So at that point, he's there, Neil.
Then, of course, the film slows right down.
Yes.
Or does it?
Wow.
Or do we now get, Megalon landing and meeting the robots?
Yes, this is when I would say this is the second half is when we get into the monster politics phase of the movie. So I keep trying to call him Joe Jaguar because in my head that's how I tried to remember that name. Jet Jaguar meets Megalon for the first time and starts guiding him. But he's under the control of the bad guy.
Yeah.
It's important to establish that because he's going to have a bit of a renaissance of his character. That's probably not the right word, but a turnaround in his character at this point. But in the meantime, we follow the other bad guy who's in the van with the container. And at some point, I guess the drivers start freaking out about his gun and his kind of demands and stuff.
Yeah.
And they decide to get rid of him. So they just swerve a bit and then they throw him down a hill.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think we see him after that. I think he's dead.
I think he must be because there's no way they literally, you think they stop, they throw him out the car. You think they're just leaving him by the side of the road, but no. there's just like a cliff, basically.
Yeah. And you see him fall quite violently down it, and I believe that's the end of his character in the movie.
And then, of course, the film begins to slow right down. Oh, wait, no, it doesn't. Now we get the military arriving.
Yeah, and there's no, like, scene where there's, like, a military man in an office going, what? What's coming? And, like, they all sort of start... You just start seeing tanks move around.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure what was happening at this point, because the first bit of that is just some people being evacuated, and then you see tanks, but it's a long scene of different... either stock footage of military vehicles or occasionally models of tanks moving through
the models are
muddy paths.
The models are so adorable.
They are quite cute, actually, and I have no issue, again, with them using these models. I think it actually lends a lot of fun to the aesthetic, and I was watching what would be otherwise quite boring scenes quite intently to see when they switch to the models and enjoy that.
The thing I don't get with this next bit, right? So we go back to our sort of our drivers.
Yeah.
They still don't know what's in the container. And you think by this stage they probably have checked. You know, they'd had a look in the container.
Yeah.
But no, what do they do instead? Do you want to...
Well, I don't really understand what they're doing here. So they sort of go to tip the container into a river by the seams of it. And the reason I don't understand this is they don't need to do this anymore. They've kicked the bad guy out. They can go and check. They seemed a bit concerned when he wouldn't tell them what was in it, that it might be a human.
Yeah.
But instead they're just like, well, we'll dump it. And then I think they get distracted at just the point where it's about to tilt into the river by the arrival of both Megalon and the race car driver guy.
I just don't understand the logic, though. Like, you've been given what? Like, was it 100,000 yen?
Yeah.
You've got a guy pointing a gun at you. You throw him out, and then you go, let's just complete the job anyway.
Yeah, that's what I didn't really understand. Why don't they bother completing the job? Why don't they just chuck it out on the road and then move on? But it becomes immaterial at this point because Megalon's arrived and they need to get out of there. So, race car driver comes in, gets out, and he wants them to help get the container down. Instead, they carjack him.
Yeah,
they drive his car away and get the hell out of there.
Basically, at one point, you think these are probably going to be good characters.
Yeah.
Because they throw out a bad guy, but then they just end up being arseholes.
Yeah. It's such an unsatisfying redemption arc for those two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, Megalon starts kind of... I don't really know what he's doing. He's just making water come over a dam.
Yeah, he jumps in the water and it causes the dam to flood.
And then does he kick the container into the air? I'm not sure what he does, but somehow the container ends up going flying.
I think he smacks it. And when we say goes flying, bear in mind, we've still got two of our heroes in this container.
Yes, yeah.
It's, at a level where if it lands, they are dead.
Yeah.
Basically.
Imagine throwing a tennis ball at a wall. It's with the same kind of velocity as that. It just flies straight through the air. I mean, the G-force alone would be, I think, unsurvivable.
Yeah.
But they're fine. They're still basically
land.
conscious.
Yeah, they're a bit dazed.
I guess for the logic of the movie, it's fine.
It feels very much, old sort of when you get very old children's cartoons.
Yeah.
Where they could be as violent as you wanted them to be, as long as everyone survived.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, they're really putting them through the paces. It's got the Tom and Jerry logic at that point.
Yeah.
It's quite satisfying as well. They've obviously built lots of models for this movie and they get the characters to smash them up. Megalon's smashing through this dam. It looks pretty cool. I do quite like some big aspects of this movie. And one of the things I really enjoy is how much attention and time they've put into their models only to go and destroy them. And that is kind of fun. I do like it.
Yeah, you said they must have been having fun doing this.
Yeah, definitely.
How could you not imagine getting a job where you're just dressed as a massive Megalon moth type thing and you're just smashing toy bridges?
That'd be brilliant.
That's your job.
Yeah, and you don't even get hassled by autograph hunters because no one knows if you're in the suit, so it would be perfect.
So finally, after basically the containers landed, the racing driver's gone over, made sure the child and the inventor are okay. The military now turn up and they start shooting Megalon.
It goes on for a while, doesn't it?
Bit too long, to be honest.
Yeah, and with the obvious conclusion that the military cannot do anything about Megalon.
Yeah.
You don't really need 5 minutes of all the same clips of models shooting at Megalon. He kind of like flails around a bit, and then he fires back his electric powers and smashes stuff up. We know that's going to happen. It goes on for a while.
Although, going back to what you were saying about the models, I will say the models like burning, like and melting.
Oh, that's what's fun, actually.
Weirdly cute.
Yeah.
As cute as fire can be.
I don't know, there's something about it. It's like watching a Wallace and Gromit where you're like, oh, it was impressive how they did that. You know?
I also just love the way he's got, like Megalon's just got a big star on his head, and that's what he shoots people.
Yeah. Again, quite cute, I think. Wouldn't look out of place in a Mario villain.
Actually, I could definitely see him in Super Smash Bros. But yeah, then basically, our inventor, he somehow just approached the military, and they're like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
Start. And he basically tells them he's got this like contraption that can sort of bring Jet's Jaguar back under control.
Yes. As a dreadful military operation, really. I mean, they're aware of the existence of Jet Jaguar, and yet make no effort to contact the inventor of it.
No.
Instead, they just mobilized every unit and watched them get destroyed.
Yes,
and then spoke to the guy because he happened to be in a container at the time.
But unfortunately, when they first try and sort of get control of Jet Jaguar again, he basically flies behind a mountain, and they're like, "Oh, I need a line of sight to be able to do this." But then what I love is we see Megalon, we see the way he actually walks, and it's the most adorable thing because he just hops.
Yeah, he does like a 2-legged hop, doesn't he? He kind of does. He pushes his arms out and leaps up and lands, and then he does it again. Which both of us looked at each other and were like, he was walking a minute ago, right? But maybe he wasn't. Maybe that is how he does it. But I want to round back to this line of sight thing, because some of the technology that we find out Jet Jaguar has is far advanced beyond the capabilities of current technology.
Yes.
And yet the controller doesn't work because he moves around the corner of a mountain.
Well, so we were saying, like, well, we'll get to that later, but they'd essentially created AI before AI was a thing.
Yes. But no, he's round a corner. We cannot communicate with him.
Yeah. But basically, the military, they then take the inventor in a helicopter.
Yes.
And they take him up to meet Megalon in the sky. No, Jet Jaguar in the sky. And that's when he can use Jet Jaguar turns back, presumably to attack the helicopter. But then the inventor stops him with the device and says, wait, we need you to get Godzilla.
Yeah, what I was surprised was it was voice activated. He just tells the thing, he goes, go get Godzilla. And he knows exactly what to do. But yeah, this was the first kind of point at which, I don't think it was mentioned previously to this, was it, that Godzilla was going to be accessed as a resource in this fight?
If it was, it definitely wasn't overtly.
No. I know the kid mentions it at one point, but yeah, so they've sent Jet Jaguar off to get Godzilla.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what their plan is in the meantime. I don't think they do much about Megalon in that space of time.
Well, essentially what we find out is Megalon, because he's got no one controlling him, he's just going insane.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So now that nobody's there to guide him, he's like jittering about, he's waving around. But he then eventually does reach a city.
Yes.
Out of nowhere and starts destroying it. So it's not that big a problem for him. I guess he's already done the main bit of the navigation.
I mean, considering that Seatopia basically wanted to cause revenge, that very vague plan.
Yes.
Surely they kind of succeed. Really.
Well, this is what I mean. At this point, they have destroyed a reasonable amount of a city.
Yeah.
They've taken out a lot of military aircraft and other stuff. Is that not enough? I'm not sure Godzilla comes in at the right time, to be honest. It's not really... I'm guessing some people have dummied.
Yeah.
Based on what's happening in this movie. So, I don't know.
It's kind of a weird one, though, if you think about it, because we're supposed to be rooting for, like, the people who, Godzilla and all the people.
Yeah.
But we were the ones who started it. We literally blew up their land with, like, a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to check in on that, because I wasn't sure, and I suspected it was probably a big theme of Godzilla movies. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but is nuclear weapons a big part of it?
I don't.
Is that like an established... Because I don't know if that's like the reason Godzilla exists in the first place. It seemed like it was very casually thrown into that background.
I mean, I will also point out Seatopia just randomly pops up.
Well, that's true, yeah. No, I don't imagine that's an established facet of this universe.
3 million year civilization.
Yeah. At this point, and again, I don't really know why this happens, but they, the kid and his older brother, the inventor, they go to a model shop.
A model shop that suspiciously looks like it's selling a lot of the models we've seen, like as actual tanks and stuff.
I imagine they'd already bought a lot, so they figured we'll shoot a quick scene in here whilst we're here.
Their plan here is very sort of random.
It's extremely random but effective in the sense that when it comes to it, what they're going to do is knock on the door of their house, wait for Snape to answer the door, then fly a plane into his face. I've heard of more simple plans.
Yeah, but as this is going on,
yes,
we have Jet Jaguar arriving on Monster Island, where he meets Godzilla.
Yeah.
And Godzilla in this film is glorious.
He doesn't look threatening, I would say.
No. He looks very much like a puppet.
Yeah, and like one that wouldn't look out of place on an 80s sitcom or a Jim Henson project.
What I love is like Jet Jaguar points at him, then points towards the land, and then you just see Godzilla nodding.
Yeah, like, a nod of understanding. Like, I see, I understand.
And then my favorite part is what then Godzilla. You think, how is he going to get to like the mainland? He just jumps in the water and starts swimming.
Yeah.
Did you ever see Robin Hood Men in Tights?
No, I didn't watch that one. No.
Oh, you should. It's great. But there's like a whole bit at the beginning where like Robin Hood, he's like locked up in jail.
Yeah.
Like in like another part of the world. And then like he escapes and you think he's going to get in a boat, but he doesn't. He just jumps in the sea and starts swimming. And they just show him like on the map and he's like literally swimming around all of Europe to get to New England.
As best as possible.
And this scene just kind of reminded me of that because they just like, there are several scenes where they go back and there's clearly a lot of times passed. He's just still swimming.
He's still, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they kind of re-established that he is still swimming. And I don't know, I know there's a couple of maps that are shown, but I don't know that maybe it's in the lore of Godzilla. People who know the Godzilla movies know how far away Godzilla is at the moment. But it feels like he must be quite far away. And as this is happening, we are seeing Megalon tear up a city.
He's like caused an insane amount of damage.
Yeah, hundreds of buildings knocked over, all kinds of damage. These are the scenes that go on for quite a while. And some of them take too long. Some of them are quite satisfying to watch or quite entertaining. I quite like the scene where he's destroying.
I've always said I quite like practical effects over CGI.
Yeah.
And I think even when they're like a little model like this and they're clearly a model, it's just so cute.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. And again, I guess it comes back to that aesthetic thing of, it's a choice that you can make. You could show me loads and loads of really impressive CGI, but I'm more entertained by what I saw there, I think.
Well, it was like, I remember that when I went to see the last, I think, Thor Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
There's a whole bit where they're like walking through Asgard, but it's quite clear he's going, well, it's a green screen.
Yes.
There's just nothing. It doesn't like, it brings no serotonin. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think, and again, I don't want to go too in a tangent, but the new Star Wars movies did do better than the prequel Star Wars movies, because they are real sets, and that did feel a bit more real.
Yeah.
Although walking against a background.
I kind of do like the prequel.
I know, yeah.
They are terrible, but they're very, they are fun.
But, for all their foibles, that is one thing. I like it when it's, you can tell it's a set, a real place.
Yeah.
The actors don't feel restrained in the green screen environment they're in. And at no point do I ever feel like the actors don't have a full set to run around. And in this movie, I mean, in the Godzilla vs. Megalon. So we're now looking at the scene where Snape is tricked by the plane.
They basically throw a rock, hits the camera, so you can't see, it basically gets his attention. He goes out the door, and we're not really sure what's going to happen at this point. But then they just literally fly a plane into his face. Blood is everywhere.
Yeah, his face explodes with blood. And then there's a scuffle. But the best bit of this scuffle is when the kid grabs onto one of those boxes and swings into Snape at maybe the slowest speed possible. Is that like the killer blow? I feel like that's the last bit of the fight.
No, it is. He just like knocks him out, essentially. But
this small child lightly bumping into him.
Well, I don't know what that box is made of, but like it seems to take out a lot of people in this film.
You know, in video games, when in mainly old school video games, when you've got like 1 health left, and like a mouse biting you could be that last bit of health. Maybe that's what happened. He had 1 health left, and that light bump that was it. He's dead.
Oh, I can't remember who the YouTuber was, but it kind of reminds me. There's like a knockoff of the Uncharted games.
Oh yeah,
and there's a bit where there's like boulders falling down like a cliff.
Yeah,
or said the character. And first of all, he tries to see if like they all they'll run out, but they just go insane and start hitting him. But then later on, he runs through and he realizes they stop, and he just walks back and touches one of the boulders, just dies immediately. But it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, a little bit similar, I think. Yeah. The child is an enemy, so it hurts if it touches you, you know. So I don't really know why they had to do that. Is that to stop him from controlling?
I think it's just so they can get their house back, from what I understand.
I suppose it is their house. Yeah, that's true, I suppose. And then they make a decision. They're like, we want to go and see the fight.
Yeah.
Like it's Tyson versus Holyfield or something.
What I love, right? So they go off. They go to where Mothra's like, no, not Mothra. It's Megalon.
Yeah, I was thinking, I keep thinking Mothra through.
Yeah. So they go to where like Megalon's like, waiting basically for the good guys to arrive.
Yeah.
I love the fact they're the only people in the entire area that go and see this fight.
Yeah, this is like a historic event. A god from the underworld has risen, and there's 3 people in attendance for this enormous battle of the ages. There's also a point in the midst of this where we cut back to Seatopia, which as a set looks completely different to anything else in the movie.
Very left field.
And then another creature is brought out. I guess there's a lot of explanation as to where this like bird-esque looking monster comes from.
Well, it was like you were saying. It was almost like they were trying to do like later on when the fight starts.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're trying to do like a tag team wrestling match or something.
Yeah, and they were like, well, we need another monster on the enemy side, otherwise it's unfair. So we're going to bring this sort of bird creature out. Once we get to this point, well, actually, no, sorry. I was about to say once we get to this point where we're stuck in the fight, but there's still something significant left to happen, which is that Jet Jaguar is going to disobey the inventor. The inventor starts putting commands towards Jet Jaguar, and he's not listening, but it's okay, because what's actually happened is Jet Jaguar has gained sentience or like a self-will or whatever.
From what they said, it was like, I built this into him. He's got like self-will now.
Yeah.
So why did you build that into him to begin with?
Yes.
How did you build that into him to begin with?
Yeah, that's a good question as well.
But the bit I love, right, is that he walks over to the monster. And bear in mind, throughout this, Jet Jaguar is much smaller than Megalon.
Yeah, yeah.
He just grows in size.
Yes.
And this is a bit like, like in the new Star Wars films, like that famous line, which is somehow Palpatine have returned.
Yeah.
They just go, he's grown. Somehow he's done that.
They don't even make an attempt to explain. He's so proud of his work, he doesn't need to wonder how that was possible. I mean, this is a point I was making about the technology that exists within Jet Jaguar, but he also can't listen to his instructions around a corner.
No.
That's why I was pointing that out. But yeah, it's a convenient thing, isn't it, that he can grow to the size. Presumably that's the maximum size he can grow, which is the same size as the other monsters.
Maybe it's like Ant-Man, though. He can just get even bigger.
Maybe, but less powerful. Maybe that's why he didn't go any bigger than that. Because if I was him, I would have just gone super big and squashed the others. But
yeah,
he decided it wouldn't be fair. A lot of this fight is based on fairness, I think.
Well, it's very much like wrestling logic here. Is you've got the bad guy, the good guy fighting.
Yeah.
Then the other bad guy comes along and he's overwhelmed.
Yes.
Megalon. And that's when Godzilla jumps in to make the save.
Yes.
It's all very much like...
It's all the beats of a classic tag team wrestling match, doesn't it? Yeah. And there's a lovely bit, isn't there, where Godzilla arrives and Jet Jaguar is so excited. He's like visibly excited. He's like, and he goes over and shakes Godzilla's hand. Like, I'm just thrilled to meet you. I'm such a fan.
But this fight, like, as much as I did enjoy it,
Yes,
it did overstay its welcome just a little bit.
it really did.
By which I mean it overstayed its welcome by about 15 minutes.
It did, and in the midst of that, your internet went down, so we paused for 10 minutes, and that was a wonderful respite from the length of this fight. I did enjoy the time we stopped watching it.
Yeah.
But it is a long scene, isn't it? It's
yeah.
far too long, and with the ultimate conclusion being quite obvious that Godzilla and Jaguar are going to win.
There really wasn't much peril.
No, even with the attempt to inject peril when they were trapped in a ring of fire.
Yeah.
That's why I kept singing Ring of Fire.
Oh!
Before
Sorry.
the recording, I kept singing Ring of Fire, and I couldn't work out why.
The annoying thing about a brilliant song, but like,
Yes.
if someone sings it, you are also going to sing it. That's the
yeah.
problem. So it got stuck in my head as well.
I mean, I won't sing it because it's probably copyright, but
Yeah.
I imagine it might even be in some of your listeners' heads now. But yeah, so they were stuck in a ring of fire, and they were kind of like sort of struggling a bit to get each other out, and Megalon and the bird thing, which is it Gigan, or what's it called?
Gigan, I think.
Yeah, so they're kind of like laughing and celebrating, aren't they? I mean, it is. How did they not think this was going to be received as campy when they've got that going on? And then, of course, they get out of the ring of fire.
I just love the way, like, throughout this fight, they just introduce new things.
Yeah.
So it starts off with Godzilla, like, literally just punching one of them, which is going to be surely the least sort of like impressive move he could do, considering his small arms.
Well, yeah, I did point out that there's not many animals in the animal kingdom that use punching as their main weapon. But Godzilla does.
Especially when they can breathe lasers.
Oh, yeah, exactly. He waits to bring that out to later in the fight. Again, very much like a wrestler who saves their best mates towards the end.
It's got to build up to it, to get the crowd into it, except the crowd is all free. But yeah, so he's breathing fire now. We've got we've got Megalon, who shoots grenades out of his mouth.
Yes.
And bear in mind, this is the first time he's done that in this instance.
I believe so. Yeah.
I do quite like the way they sort of initially beat him, though. Because he shoots a grenade up in the air.
Yes.
They move out of the way and it falls back into his mouth.
Yeah.
And then, blows up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because while that's going on, there's another point where the good guys have gotten the upper hand.
Yeah, now they're on top at this point.
You've got Jaguar beating the other, Giganton or whatever his name is.
He goes off and has a fight with Gigan, leaving Godzilla to beat up Megalon. Well, I mean, it makes sense because the film is called Godzilla versus Megalon, so that should be the main bout, I suppose. But yeah, at this point, this is when we see that famous part. As the fight's sort of drawing to a close, Godzilla starts doing his finishes, including that wonderful drop kick.
Yeah, and I will say, for anyone who wants to see that, because it is a great scene, and it's what this film is probably best known for. I'll put a link to a YouTube video of it in the description.
Yeah, definitely do. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to watch any part of this movie, I think it encapsulates the kind of feeling, I suppose, of silliness.
Yeah, I think it's the only scene where without seeing the whole film, it's that's fantastic.
Yeah, you're not going to get closer without watching the movie to the experience without seeing that, I think.
Although most people I showed that scene to have gone, that's hysterical.
Yes.
I showed it to my mum, and she just seemed to get irrationally angered by it. She just went, "Oh, that's stupid."
I mean, it is.
That's why it's great.
Well, if I'm going to get cross. That's good. So they don't die, do they, these monsters?
Well, one of them kind of gets beaten and just flies off.
Yeah.
And then the other one, so Megalon, he shot the grenade up, it's landed in his mouth, exploded. And then you have the bit where Jaguar holds him, and that's when you get the drop kick.
Yeah.
He does that twice with a nice little fist bump thing.
Yeah, he's really pumping himself up, isn't he, Godzilla? He's like, I can't believe I just did that. I'm going to do it again.
And then, I don't quite understand exactly how it works, but Megalon basically just sort of falls into a gap in the earth.
Yeah.
And that's when the people from Zootopia, is it?
Yes.
They sort of go, right, hide all the exits, and then, like, land starts crumbling into
they like
gap.
bury him in rocks, and it's not really explained why they do that, is it, at this point? They're just sort of, I guess they just give up. They're just like, I guess we lost, let's hide the evidence.
Yeah.
And we'll go away. Because it's not like there's no epilogue. That's the last we see of Seatopia.
Yeah.
It's never clear if they feel like they've achieved their objectives or if they're frustrated by the humans once more.
I'm not going to lie, there is a part of me that would love to see a spin-off, which is just Seatopia.
Because they could be they could easily be the protagonists of this story.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're the ones that have been antagonized by the humans in the first place.
We've blown up a large part of their civilization, yeah.
Yeah, and then we're getting cross that they've sent a monster, so we send one back. Oh, I even forgot about, again, a really lovely scene where
It's like
Jet Jaguar and Godzilla are again shaking hands. You can tell he's so happy to have fought. It's like, if you were an up-and-coming boxer and you got to fight alongside Ali, that's what I imagine Jet Jaguar is feeling.
It's got like, it is very much like, so at the beginning of the fight, great to be fighting again, and that was a really good fight.
Yeah, I'm so proud to have met you,
And I like you just get Godzilla just wandering off as the heroes like wave at him and say goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Godzilla, because I want to know when Godzilla became a hero, like in what film he became a hero.
That's what I would like to know more as well. And to be fair, I am invested now in understanding more about the Godzilla, which I wasn't before. So I would be interested to know that. Because
at no point in this film was he ever portrayed as, like even we would contemplate the idea that he'd be a bad guy.
No, which is, I mean, when you think about like the Western adaptations, the ones that I've seen, the Bryan Cranston one and the 90s one, he's very much the villain, or at least, the terror.
Yeah. If
not a villain.
But, right, so then we get our heroes running, well, I say our heroes are humans.
Yeah.
I'd say really it's...
I mean, they haven't done a lot. I suppose they invented Jet Jaguar.
Yeah. But Jet Jaguar basically shrinks back down to human size after doing some cool hand movements. And then, they try and say, let's go home, but he just stands there.
Yes.
And you think, what, has he died? Is he turning on them? What's going on? Is this a heel turn? But... no, he's just decided to give up his free will.
Yeah, that was really nice of him, I suppose. He's gone home. But what's weird about this, I guess, is he's designed into Jet Jaguar that he can gain free will. But the only time he chooses to gain free will is at a moment where he's doing nothing but servitude to the humans.
Yeah.
So, and then he decides to give it back up when he no longer needs to do anything to the humans. So really, he hasn't experienced free will. He just decided to do that fight on his own.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, well, essentially they say, let's go home when they've, they say into the little controller that he's got. And he just kind of wanders off home with them.
Yeah.
And I believe that's pretty much the end of the film.
Yeah, that's it. They're a happy family now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it leaves it open for Jet Jaguar. And I don't know if this is an established character in the franchise, but he could certainly appear in other movies.
I would
like him to.
Yeah, and see this if they made one.
Yeah. I want to know more about Jet Jaguar. I didn't think I was going to come out thinking that was the best character, but I think he's great.
If I'm completely honest, going into this film,
yeah,
I knew nothing about this. All I knew is that one dropkick scene.
Yes.
This film was so much more fun than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, there was a risk, wasn't there, that it would be a bit of a dud.
Yeah.
It would be boring, and that would just be the only scene where it's silly.
Legitimately, I was looking at other films just in case that was the case.
Yeah, yeah.
But from what I understood, I was looking it up. This is generally considered to be sort of like the worst or second worst Godzilla by a lot of people. A lot of people do see it quite fondly, though, as a bit of a sort of a camp cult classic, which I kind of feel is earned. It
definitely
just is.
Yeah, and even the aspects of it that are boring, to some extent, the long fight scenes, the long scenes, it's not so bad that it puts you off the movie. You're not completely tuned out. It's still fun.
I think, to be honest with you, the fact of the matter is, the boring bits normally go like this. There's an earthquake that goes on for too long. Yeah. Then they go home, there's a massive fight. Then the villains come in, they call up the Seatopia Seatopia's a fantasy world underground. They raise Megalon and he comes and destroys humanity. It's like, so I would say the boring bits generally have a long string of insanity after them.
And then you're spending some time wrapping your head around what just happened whilst there's, such scenes of military men moving around and stuff.
I mean, literally, there were a few points in this film where I looked away for 2 seconds, looked back and was just like, yes.
You really can't take your eyes off the screen with this one. You may miss a critical change that's establishing a new world.
There was a point where I got up to get orange juice. And I kept having to glance back at the TV just in case.
Yes.
It was,
in case a new creature had appeared or some other ancient race. So,
what have you got? Any other thoughts about this film?
I can't really believe I'm saying this, but I really liked it. And I don't know if there's a novelty aspect to the fact that I've never seen one of the classic Godzilla movies. So there's possibly parts of it that are the same that I would enjoy in any Godzilla movie. But the reality is, I enjoyed watching this a lot. And I don't think all of that was ironic.
No, I actually agree, because I was trying to think, would I call this so bad that it's good? Or I think there's definitely overriding element of that. But at the same time, do I want to go out and watch other Godzilla films? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he kind of did succeed in its goal. And that's not in an ironic way. I genuinely am intrigued to know if others are like this. I want to know when Godzilla becomes a good guy.
Yeah.
I want to know when they turn into this weird, campy, fun nonsense.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would compare this might sound a bit weird. I would compare this to Rocky IV.
Is that the Street Fighter one?
No, Rocky IV is the one where he fights Drago. But about 30% of that movie is training montages. So it's got that element of the sense that there's a lot of stuff that's repetitive.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of campy movie for an established character. There are villains thrown in there out of nowhere, twists out of nowhere. Apollo Creed dies in that one, Drago, and then I think Paulie's got a robot for some reason as well in that one. So it's a mental movie, and it's objectively badly put together, but everyone likes that one.
Yeah.
So it's a good movie. So I think this follows that formula to some extent. And I would say, this is the Rocky IV of Godzilla movies.
I guess it's been a long time since I've seen the Rocky films. I have seen them all at some point.
Yeah.
I remember bits of that one. But
there's not a lot to it. That's the thing. It's mostly montages.
Yeah.
So,
Is that the one where they had the montage where he's in the snow?
Yes. Yeah, in the mountains training,
Yeah.
That's how he trained to beat a Russian boxer who's made of injections and stuff.
Yeah. So, we've got the tricky question now, and I don't even know how I'm going to answer this.
Yeah.
What would you give us out of 10?
I've been thinking about this, and I'm going to say a 7 out of 10.
I think I would also, because I normally go so bad that's good, has to be a 6 out of 10. But like you were saying, there are parts of this that I unironically liked.
Yeah.
So I think I'd probably go 7 out of 10 as well, which I did not expect to be saying.
That wasn't even in the sphere of possibility when I came into this. But there you go. That's what's wonderful about movies. They can surprise you.
It's weird. I can sort of, because I started watching a review for this on YouTube, but then I didn't want to have spoilers.
Yeah.
And they were saying it was their least favourite Godzilla film. I can't imagine that.
No.
If I'm honest. I just, something this ludicrous.
Yeah.
I just think it's a risk doing a film like this. But I really enjoyed it.
But I think we're coming in at the other end, aren't we? We don't have any established love or preconception as to what Godzilla movie should be. If you took The Mummy, obviously as your expert subject.
Yeah.
And then you saw a mummy movie that looked like this.
I'd love it, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe that's a bad example.
To be honest with you, in fairness, I do love those films, but they're not exactly high art.
No, you're right. No, you are right.
I think all of those kind of series, they go along the same line where the first one is normally quite highly regarded. So The Mummy 1932 is highly regarded.
Yeah.
And then you kind of, they always turn into campy nonsense eventually.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with a monster that people aren't really invested in understanding. They just want to see the monster do their thing, and yeah. So
for me, I think whether you like this film or not, will go into how you view sort of like things like Batman. So, for instance, if you really like, say, the modern Batman, where it's not, like I'm talking like the Dark Knight trilogy and the new one, where it's quite sort of like dark and gritty.
Yeah.
And you then go and you see Adam West Batman, and you go, "Oh no, this is rubbish."
Yeah,
you won't like this film. But if you can look at those new ones, go appreciate them for what they are, but then see the Adam West ones and just go, "What is this nonsense?" But be equally entertained by that.
Yeah.
Then I think maybe that might be where this film lies. It's on the more campy side. It is a bit rubbish, but it's kind of in a good way.
Yeah,
in my opinion. But I do know, like when it comes to like Batman, there are people who absolutely detest the Adam West ones because it goes against a very core idea of what Batman is.
And that's the seriousness that I think some people might have for this franchise. And I'm speaking completely out of ignorance here, but I can imagine people being annoyed that something like Godzilla, which is supposed to probably be a certain amount of things, is depicted as a ridiculous-looking monster that emerges to do some wrestling moves.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I enjoyed this film, the Bryan Cranston one. I love Bryan Cranston. I think he's amazing, but that film I thought was rubbish.
Yeah, I do you know, it's funny that I call it the Bryan Cranston one, but he's not even in it that much, is he? Just the only thing I remember about it, because he's quite good.
I actually don't know if I made it all the way through it.
I definitely did, because I saw it at the cinema, but I don't remember a lot about it.
The one I remember most, and from what I understand, it is supposed to be quite a bad one. I've got nostalgia for it. Is the 90s one.
Yeah.
I kind of do. I agree it is a bit rubbish, but I kind of have a bit of a soft spot for it.
No, I quite like most of the Roland Emmerich movies.
Yeah.
And even though they are absolute dross, I do enjoy them.
I enjoy the way in that one, like the size of the Godzilla changes like everything.
Well, I like that he put Siskel and Ebert in that movie. Do you know about this?
No.
So, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert were film critics in America. They're both dead now.
Okay.
But they were really...
I know Roger Ebert.
Yeah, obviously both big names. They were really anti, I think, Independence Day, the previous Emmerich film.
Okay.
So Emmerich included two characters in that movie. I think they're called something like Biskel and Ebert or something. They're not like names that are not even... They look like the two of them as well.
Yeah.
And they're just like these kind of caricatures of like these snooty, like snobby movie critics. But they don't die. And Roger Ebert, after the movie, said something along the lines of, if you're going to include us in a monster movie, at least squash us. Like, what kind of cojones do you have to not kill us in your Godzilla movie?
Although I will say, how can you not like Independence Day?
I agree with that. It's not high art, as you said.
No, definitely not.
But I quite like that Godzilla movie. It's fun.
Yeah,
I think.
Anyway,
right.
I think that probably brings about an end to this episode. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing me on for one that I liked.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's rare. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening. And join me next time, where we shall be looking at Ridley Scott's Exodus, Gods and Kings from 2014. I hope you all have a really good week, and see you then.
Bye.